going on?
Hi there, how are you?
How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm doing good.
Okay, great. Everyone, so welcome to our first edition of Inside Steelers Room, presented by Steelers Room. Today we have a special guest. So today we have 2019 Consensus All-American, 2019 FCS Running Back of the Year, and former Steelers, Panthers, Jets, and Monmouth University running back Pete Guerriero. Welcome, Pete. So why don't we start right off? So in high school, you played basketball along with football and track and field. So did you plan on becoming a professional athlete then?
The thought for me in the beginning of high school was to go play college for basketball until I had a good junior season in football. Then I decided going to college for football would probably be best. Um, and then from there on, I actually didn't end up going to college to play football. I actually went to college to run track. And then I walked on to the football team my sophomore year of college. And then there from out, I started to play football, and I remembered my love for the game that I had. So that's kind of how things led up to the point of me playing football in college.
Okay, great. So as you said, you began your athletic career at Monmouth as a track and field star on a scholarship. So
hmm
how do you think that your track and field background helped you on the football field?
Um, a tremendous amount. Uh, if you turn on my college tape, the thing that really stands out when I go back and watch it is my ability to separate from defenders. My acceleration isn't the best, but that's the beauty about football is it's all about game speed. So, the first 20 yards is all building momentum anyways from the running back position. So every single time I was able to break a long run, for the most part, I was able to separate myself from a defender and use my speed endurance really to score long touchdown runs.
Okay, interesting. So obviously those long touchdown runs were quite common for you in university. So, as this helped you become so successful, what if you could give aspiring young athletes one piece of advice, what would it be?
Play as many sports as you can when you're a young kid. When I was young, growing up, I played baseball, basketball, football. I ran track when I started to get to high school, my junior and senior year. Playing multiple sports, growing up in a small town, it actually helped me, benefited me a tremendous amount. I'm able to track the ball. I have very natural receiving skills. So, catching a football and the ability to track a long pass, it all comes natural to me. So, um, for all younger athletes, I would easily suggest to play multiple sports, dip and dive into every sport you can, because the more sports you play, the more athletic you'll get.
Okay, great. That's probably very helpful for a lot of young athletes out there who want to make it go pro.
hmm
So, growing up, did you have any big inspirations, and was there anyone in particular who played a key role in your journey to becoming a professional athlete?
I want to say the biggest person would probably be my mother. She, growing up, she was a single mother. She raised me and my brother, so I got to see her work multiple jobs. She put herself through school. And she's grown to be a successful mother, a successful wife, and she's really successful in her job now. So I got to see her grow, and I got to see her strive and persevere through everything that you know what I mean, that she has gone through. So basically, she's probably my biggest inspiration. She's the one that keeps me level-headed now, to keep me working, whether I'm on a team, whether I'm off a team, regardless. Just staying ready.
Wow, that's great to hear. So also, was there any like particular athlete growing up also that you admired or who you try to model your game after?
Um, I would say just like every other kid that grew up in my day, it would be, Reggie Bush. I loved Reggie Bush. I loved watching him in college, when I was a young kid. I loved to see how he was able to translate that from the NFL. And then all the older time guys, your Emmett Smiths, Walter Payton, all those Barry Sanders, all those old time running backs. Those are the ones that I kind of would always look for, but I always kind of try to look for athletes that were more versatile. So Reggie Bush can say is my inspiration. That's who I modeled my game after or try to be like.
Okay, great. Going old school. So after having a record-breaking junior year at Monmouth, you decide to declare for the NFL draft early. Did you expect to be drafted, and was there any team which was interested in you or expressed interest in you?
Yeah, I expected to be drafted prior to my pro day, and that was prior to my pro day. That's what all the teams were telling me at that point. I went to my pro day and I had a really bad pro day. Um, I let the nerves and the jitters get to me, so I ended up running slower in my 40. I ended up running slower in my 5:10.5 and slipping in it. So I never got my true numbers out there. So that's really what hurt me. The biggest team that talked to me the most that at the time, even after were talking to me during the draft was the Eagles. I thought they were going to draft me at the time, and then when it rolled around, they called me after draft and spoke to me and said that they weren't going to sign me. They kept it really high class, and they communicated with me the entire time. So I kind of messed myself up with how I went about my pro day and my training and things like that. But yeah, it's just how the story goes.
Okay, great. And after um sort of everything not panning out as you expected, do you ever regret not returning to college for that for another season?
No, no, I don't ever want to live in regrets. I spent, I was able to spend basically the entire first year on a team or on two teams, bouncing from Carolina to the New York Jets, and then I was able to get an opportunity this past August with being with Pittsburgh, and ultimately that's the main goal of leaving early. That was the main goal. It wouldn't matter if I get drafted or what happens. I was given an opportunity to play on multiple teams, and in some cases I made the most of them. In some cases I didn't. So the ultimate goal was to play in the NFL and put myself in a position where I can get on a team, and that's what I did. So I'm happy with that decision.
I'm glad to hear. So that is obviously a great mindset to have, living with no regrets. So you touched on earlier nerves, and now just again now you touched on mindset. Is there anything that you have been doing or you have learned on how or strategies which you have learned to help cope with those nerves?
Not necessarily cope with the nerves. I you- when so after the draft, for example, when I didn't get drafted, I was really down on myself. I didn't get signed right away, and I kind of lacked on my training. I wasn't training as hard. Um, Over time, bouncing around from team and talking to teams about possibly getting an opportunity and having teams call me all the time saying, "Are you healthy? Are you in shape?" The one thing I've learned is perseverance. And regardless of what the outcome is, I need to make sure that I'm at the top shape I can be at all times. And that'll take away the jitters of everything. So basically, what I've learned is just persevere through all the adversity, make sure that I'm staying in shape, make sure that I'm working out the right way, making sure I'm doing everything right. And, right now, I can honestly say that this is probably the best shape I've been in a long time.
Okay, well that's great to hear. So continuing on about your NFL experience, would you mind describing that to us? So what were some of your favorite moments, and were there any players or interactions that really stood out to you?
Um, Yeah. Being in my favorite experience probably is just being able to get away from New Jersey because I'm from New Jersey. I went to college in New Jersey. So I got to live in Charlotte, North Carolina for a little bit. I got to live in Pittsburgh for a little bit. So getting out, getting to be around top level athletes and the most memorable experience is probably just like finally getting out to practice it and realizing that like I belong here. You know what I mean? That I'm just as good, better than some guys, maybe not as good as some guys, but I belong. And everybody that's in the NFL is uncommon athletes, so that's probably the biggest thing. Some people that have stood out that have that were good people is I met, like, I was in a room with Christian McCaffrey when I was in Carolina. I was in a room with Frank Gore when I was in with the Jets. In Pittsburgh, I was with Coach Falk and I was with Najee. So I got to learn and got to talk and get experience and be around these guys and build relationships with these guys. So, those are probably three or four of the key guys that like have taught me a lot. I got to meet a good friend when I was in Pittsburgh, who I still talk to this day, Tony Brooks James, who was another running back, and he was another guy like me on the cusp. Wasn't sure if he was going to make the team or not. So I got to build a good relationship with him, and we still talk to this day.
Well, that's great to hear. So on the topic of Pittsburgh, you spent a good chunk of August with the Steelers organization. So
Mhm.
what were some of your favorite moments while you were in Pittsburgh?
Um, I would have to say, so it was my first experience because the previous year, um, during training camp, it wasn't open; it was closed to the public. So my favorite experience is probably the first week I get there. Um, Obviously, it wasn't in the news or anything. I spent 10 days in quarantine in Green Bay. Um, so I was supposed to sign with the Green Bay Packers. I had COVID at the time, so I tested positive for COVID. Um, and then they said that I had to quarantine for 10 days. I stayed out there for 10 days. And then Pittsburgh called me because Green Bay wasn't going to sign me at that point. Pittsburgh called me, so I came to Pittsburgh. I literally flew into Pittsburgh, got off the plane, got into the facility, and I thought I was just there for a regular workout, so that way they can make sure I was in shape. Got into the facility, they said, "Okay, sign this and go out to practice." So I literally had about an hour from the plane to when I was outside practicing, and I got to go out there. Basically the entire bottom half of the stadium is filled with fans, which was an awesome experience. That was my first time being out there with fans. So, and the preseason game when it was in Philadelphia, just seeing the amount of fans there was in Philly and the amount of Pittsburgh fans that actually came to Philadelphia to see that game, that was probably the best experience.
Wow, that's a really cool story. So I was obviously not aware of this. I hadn't really thought about how COVID had really impacted sort of the opportunities which players received. Um, while on the topic of all this practicing and everything, was there any of the Steelers who stood out at practice due to their abilities or personalities?
Yeah, some of the biggest guys you'll see at the time, TJ wasn't practicing because he was going through his contract negotiations. But you'll see like Minka Fitzpatrick stands out. He was another Jersey kid, so we were familiar with each other from back home. Um, Najee Harris stands out a huge amount because he's just so hard to tackle. His contact balance, the way he practices, the way he prepares. Um, Big Ben stands out. Ben Roethlisberger. Congratulations on his retirement and a successful career. But he stood out because he always, regardless of how the practice was going, he always demanded the most of everybody. Those are probably the biggest three. Of course, you have your other bigger name guys who always are making plays like Juju. Another person that really stood out was Ray McLeod. He stood out a lot because he's really quick. He's got some speed, and he's really, really good in the return game. So that was cool to see.
Okay, great. So it's great to hear a bit about our favorite Steelers. Great. So while looking back over your NFL career, were there any players that you played alongside, either in college or NFL, sort of similar to this last question, that stood out to you? So not just in Pittsburgh?
Um, yeah, I mean, well, I want to say the biggest person across any team that I've been through that stood out the most is Christian McCaffrey. And the reason why I say this is because he his work ethic is second to none. I've never met somebody that works as hard as him. He's one of the first people in the building. He's one of the last to leave. He's always doing something to take care of his body. He's always making sure he gets his lifts in. He's one of the first people out to practice, making sure that he's getting the proper warm up. He's always making sure he gets his proper nutrition in. So being able to take things from him and being able to take things at the time, the assistant running backs coach in Carolina was EJ Bartell, who he's the UConn running backs coach now. But him and Christian were close, and me and EJ were close because he's from New Jersey. So being able to be around them and gain that experience and gain that knowledge, that's when really everything clicked in my head. Was that the work ethic, what it takes to be the best, right? So I don't play the game of football to just be on a team, to get on a team, to stay on a practice squad. Every time that I go work out or every time I step on the field, I want to prove that I'm the best player there regardless. So he was probably the biggest impact on me, even though he might not know it. Um, what it taught me and the work that it takes to get to the top, because he was one of the best running backs when he's healthy. He is probably the best running back in the league. He kind of taught me, and just the way he acts and the way he works, on what it takes to be the best running back in the league.
Okay, that's great to hear. So obviously, with injuries having recently sort of derailed the last few seasons, it's a real bummer for McCaffrey, but hopefully he is healthy soon. So, as some of you may know, Mr. Guerrero recently started his own clothing line titled Be Unforgettable. So, would you mind telling us a bit about your clothing line and what inspired you to start it?
Yeah, so I've had the words "BU." I had it in my bio for probably almost 8 years now. Um, and years ago, my mom started I don't know if you're familiar, but she started a wholesale brand where she would buy clothes wholesale and then sell it. And she used the name Be Unforgettable, and it kind of stuck with me. And since I loved the name Be You so much, or the saying, just be you, be yourself, I decided that using Be Unforgettable fits the most. So, one day I decided that I was just going to start this clothing brand. I had help with a friend to make the logo, and I've had help from a couple of my friends now, just, making sure that it's running smoothly, making sure that we're doing the right things. But, the whole point of it basically is to just remind everybody to be ourselves. In this world, everybody's constantly trying to change you. So, regardless of what people think, regardless of how people act, you should always just continue to be yourself. So that's why I started it. I just want everybody to. I just wanted to remind everybody that they are unforgettable, regardless of what it is. So that's where it kind of stands out to me.
Awesome. That's a really impactful message. So, is there anything you desire to accomplish with this company? Is there any big goals which you have, or?
I mean, I kind of am just taking it day by day, seeing where things go. I don't know yet. I don't know yet. I kind of see how things play out. I want to wait. I want to see how everything goes. But yeah, all in all, the goal of the company right now is to just provide that message to everybody, to just remind everybody that they should be themselves, regardless of whatever is happening around them, regardless of what the crowd is doing, just always to remain themselves. So that's the ultimate goal right now. Is you know, it's definitely been pushing. It's been pushing in my area. A lot of people know the logo. The logo stands out really well. So when people see the logo now from at least my area, where majority of the people are buying it from, they get the gist of it and they understand, like, oh, that's Be Unforgettable. And it's just, it's cool to see how it's growing to start.
Well, yeah, that's a great initiative which you've started. So everyone, feel free to go over and check out the Instagram, Be Unforgettable. I'll definitely, hopefully in the future, maybe be buying some clothing from there. So everyone check it out. Okay, so lastly, so what's next for you in your career? Do you intend on focusing on your clothing brand, or will you make your return to football, or anything different?
So what's next? I'm hoping to receive a contract or be in this USFL draft in the spring. Um, if I'm not playing in the USFL this spring, the goal is to stay in contact like I have been with NFL teams still. Hopefully, get into a couple of rookie mini camps and work out for teams and get signed. And if not, I'll either think about playing in the CFL in the fall or, wait till December when the XFL starts. So the goal is to continue to play football. Which league, I don't know. Wherever it takes me, it takes me. But the goal is to, continue to play.
Okay, great. Well, we wish you the best of luck on that journey. Is there anything in particular which you're doing to stay ready and stay focused and in shape for this?
So recently I've been making sure that I'm getting a lot of going back to my track background and getting a lot of my track workouts in and making sure I'm staying ready in the weight room by doing mostly explosive lifts. Come Monday, the day after the Super Bowl, I'm going to be heading down to Southern New Jersey. I'm from Northern, and I'm going to be working out around my old college and at a high school near there with my old college track coach. And from there, I'm going to be down there 4 times a week, working out with him, getting a track work in, and getting a lifting in. So basically, going back to my track roots, making sure that the next time I step on the field, I know that I'm the fastest player on the field.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, so we wish you the best of luck on that front. As you mentioned, the Super Bowl. Any predictions? Do you have any predictions for us?
Uh, I I don't know. I think if I had to pick one winner, I would say the Rams. I think they're the way they are up front with Aaron Donald and their defensive line. I think it's going to be too much to handle for the Bengals offensive line. But we'll see. We'll never know. We never know.
Okay, great. So thank you very much. I just want to quickly open it up to the audience. If they have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat or in the Q&A function. I see we have one here from Steelers Tapes. He's asking, what was your favorite memory from college?
Um, my favorite memory from college is probably my sophomore year of college, my first year playing football. We played Liberty University. This is the year when they were transitioning from the FCS to the FBS. And prior to playing them, my coach in the summertime, my running back coach, he said something to me because it's my first year playing football. I was kind of skinnier. He was like, you got to put on some weight because the Liberty linebackers don't play. That's what he said because they're bigger guys. So when we played Liberty, um, the first drive of the game, they get the ball first. They drive down the field and they score right away. Then they kick off. On that next kickoff, I actually returned that kickoff to the house. So that probably was my favorite memory in college. That return, because that set the momentum up for the game. We ended up blowing Liberty out right before they went to the FBS. So it was awesome. Great experience.
Well, that's great to hear. Obviously, you were known for those long runs and returns, obviously, probably helped by your track background. So Fly Society underscore NI, it's sort of a similar question to before with advice for high schoolers who want to get a shot at playing at a D1 level, but rather than sort of advice physically, is there any way which you would suggest that would help to get sort of recognition for the D1 level?
Um, I think it goes back to the same thing. Play multiple sports. Track helps a lot, especially because the faster your track times are, the more likely a coach is to reach out to you. They want speed in all levels of the game. And I think the biggest thing for high school kids they need to realize is that do everything with a purpose. So every workout you do, everything that you do, every workout, every run, every single time your coach says get to the line after practice, make sure you're doing that with 100% effort all the time. And that's what's going to bring you to the next level. And that's what's going to help you essentially play Division One.
Okay, great. Just wondering, any other questions from the audience before we wrap this interview up? While we wait for that quickly, is there sort of anything, any moments, sort of welcome to the NFL or welcome to college moments that you can think of which really sort of set the tone for your career at that level?
Um, my welcome to the NFL moment was probably when I got to Pittsburgh. Even though I had a year under my belt, like I said, I got off the plane. Um, and the first day I got off the plane, we were full live contact, and I got an opportunity to get the ball, even though I basically knew nothing about offense. And my first carry was actually like an 18-yard outside zone run. Um, and that was probably my welcome to the NFL because even though I had just had COVID and I was ten days in quarantine, I didn't work out, I didn't run, I was still able to break a couple tackles and break off an 18-yard run. So that was probably my welcome to the NFL moment. That's when it really clicked in my head like, okay, I can do this and I can do this at the highest level.
That's great. So, sort of a Steelers themed question here from Braden R. Little or Riddle. Sorry. He is asking if what your thoughts are on the Steelers rebuilding phase. So, any thoughts on the future of the Steelers, or would you like to comment on that at all?
So I don't even think you can consider the Steelers this year, like these next year or two. I don't think we can even consider them a rebuilding phase, right? The only thing, the big major factor is that Big Ben retired. Other than that, like they have a young team. They have a young receiver core. Even if they don't get Juju Smith-Schuster back, they're still young on the receiver core. They have one of the best running backs in the league, was only a rookie this year. They have a young offensive line. They drafted well in a center last year as well, and they have a young defense. You know what I mean? They just signed TJ to another contract. Defensive player of the year. So, and they have a young secondary. Now it's just a matter of making sure that they are able to re-sign these guys on the defensive side of the ball. So I don't think it's going to be much of a rebuild. I think it's going to be more of a reload. You know what I mean? They're just going to make sure that they can, stack up their players right this offseason with making a couple more signings, um, and then they'll go from there. It'll never be a down year as long as Coach Tomlin is there. Coach Tomlin's a great coach, and he coaches his players well.
Great. That's a great perspective and a great point you bring up there. So just one of the last ones from Fly Society _NI again. So they're asking, how did your support system help you get through college and persevere through going from team to team once in the NFL?
Um, they were everything, and he was part of my support system. Um, they were everything to me. They were the ones that convinced me that I can be playing football at the highest level. When I graduated college, I didn't have Division I offers in football, and that's why I decided to go for track. And they were the ones that kept telling me, "Hey, go to your coach and see if you can play football there." And you know what I mean? And just like now, they're the ones that are staying on me, and they're the ones that are making sure that I'm staying in shape. So when that opportunity comes the next time, I'm prepared for it. And like I said, I'm in the best shape of my life, and I have to, I have to give credit where credit's due, and I give credit to everybody in my support staff for making sure that I'm staying in tip top shape right now.
Well, that's great to hear that you really had that support throughout your journey in the NFL. So one last question from Steelers tapes. How was the transition speed? How was the transition speed wise from college to the NFL, and how, as a running back, did you have to make your vision faster?
Um, so the biggest thing about speed was when I turned a corner. And I remember vividly my first week in Carolina. I took an outside zone. I beat the end around the edge, and I got around the edge, and I looked to my right, and usually, especially at the FCS level, I would have been gone. I looked to my right, and I had 4-3 defensive backs chasing after me. So the biggest transition is that speed wise. From a vision standpoint, um, the vision for me has always came naturally. In all aspects of the game, regardless of level, you have to make your decisions fast at running back. So it did get a little quicker with how quick I need to make my decisions. but it wasn't as a big as transition as I thought it was going to be, because that's probably where I make most of my money. Is I'm pretty good in between the tackles with, reading my blocks and setting them up the way I want to set them up.
Well, that's glad to hear that the transition went nice and smooth for you from the college to the NFL level. So let's just finish it off with a question from Phil.Fernandez94. So he's just asking if you had any other offers from NFL teams. So obviously you played for the Panthers, you played for the Jets, you played for the Steelers, and you talked about possibly almost having signed with Green Bay. But were there any other teams which you were close to signing or expressed interest in you?
Yeah, so actually throughout this whole process of being a free agent, uh, um, in late December, I went and worked out for the Chicago Bears. I had a good workout there. Um, they told me straight when I went there right after I worked out for them that I did super well, but it was part of the time where the NFL was getting a spree in COVID cases. So they said if one of our running backs gets COVID, we'll sign you to the practice squad. And then from there, the only other team that's really, really stayed in contact with me is the Arizona Cardinals. They call every couple weeks and they called like every couple weeks during the season to make sure I was in shape, just in case somebody got injured on their team. But other than that, it's been pretty quiet from that regard.
Okay, that's really interesting to hear. So I just want to end it up off with one last question. So sorry, was there anything else? I don't know. Everyone is just obviously super excited to see you. The question was, would you say that although COVID has obviously had its impact on sort of how easy it is for players to gain recognition and the draft process and everything, would you say there's been any benefits to COVID in regards to being able to sort of more roster spots open due to COVID cases and everything like that?
Yeah, that's the biggest benefit. I'd say there's more downside to it with like especially my draft class. A lot of players in my draft class, they didn't get an opportunity because there was no rookie mini camps, there was no working out for teams prior to the draft, or anything like that. But I want to say the fact that they've extended the practice squad to 16 players, provides more opportunities for the league. And last year, usually it's like I believe it used to be like 100 players in training camps. Last year, they bumped it up from 2020. It was actually 80. Now 2021, it was 92, I believe. So, the fact that they're finally bumping the rosters up and giving more players opportunity, especially in the practice squad, how there's 16 spots now, that's probably the biggest upside to how COVID affected the NFL.
Okay, thanks for answering that. So, once again, I just wanted to thank you so much for all the sort of the opportunity to do this. I just wanted to once again reiterate, everyone go check out Be Unforgettable, Pete's own clothing line. It is pinned in the chat. And we just want to all wish you the best of luck in your future. Hopefully the USFL draft goes well and maybe even the NFL calls. But anyways, I just wanted to once again thank you so much for all of this and wish you the best in the future.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You as well.
Bye.